for today, we are super fortunate and super excited to be joined by Ian Taverner, who is a cookbook author. He's also a chronic illness, fatigue, and mental health survivor. And we do an interview with him, which we're going to show soon, and then you're going to join us later for a live cooking demonstration with recipes from his new cookbook, Cookfulness, a therapeutic approach to cooking. And I just want to, before we jump into the interview, because it's a fabulous interview with him, I want to read, a little excerpt from the back of the book, which says, "This cookbook is crammed full of new and innovative ways, hints, and tips designed specifically for people with chronic pain and mental health conditions by me, a fellow sufferer. It is all to help you want to cook, not have to. Cooking really can be therapy. Cooking really can ignite your passions. Cooking really is possible. If you are having a bad day, I want to make it better. If you are having a better day, I want to make it good. If you are having a good day, I want to make it great. And if you are having a great day, then good on you. All from A Man in Pain, A Life to Gain." Which, diving into the interview, diving into the cookbook and some of the recipes after, you're going to see why I was so inspired by Ian, and I just had to share his story. I had to share some of the resources that he has developed. Yes, without further ado, here is our interview with Ian Taverner. I have an amazing guest, Taverner, or Mr. Cookfulness himself, who's going to speak about his new cookbook, and we have a few extra questions to ask as well. Ian, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you so much for having me. It's my first overseas appointment. It's brilliant.
Likewise. Yes, absolutely. And a little bit about that, how we got connected through Twitter. And I guess we were talking about it a little bit before, but we were your 300th follower, and you generously sent us a copy of your new cookbook, which is incredible, by the way. And we were, just super fortunate to be able to connect and have you collaborate with us for our Community Connections event. So again, thank you so much. Why don't we start it off with yourself? Tell us a little bit about who is Mr. Cookfulness, who is Ian?
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm Ian. I'm just over 50, only a little bit, but just over 50. I live in the south of England, although none of us are actually from. My wife and my two girls, we're all born in different places. I'm originally from a small island. My wife's Irish, but we just settled in the south of England. I basically used to work in financial services for many years, up until the age of about 44, 43, but I had to give up due to ill health. So basically struggle with, I suffer with fibromyalgia, arthritis physically, and depression and anxiety mentally. So yeah, it's been an interesting few years. That's the last 7 or 8 years I've been sort of struggling with health quite substantially.
Really written, but how has that made the cooking more challenging?
It's made a lot of things more difficult. I think once I started to try, sort of cooking was the thing I was going to have a go at. I realized that my sort of creativity had gone. My sort of stamina very much was gone, and I think I was suffering from recipe blindness, if that's the thing. I just was unable to make something. I had to follow a recipe, but when I followed a recipe, I couldn't actually understand it. So the sort of mixture of the brain fog not really working very well, and the physically being unable to sort of chop or stand or whatever, I found it really, really hard, to the point where I was going to give up. But thankfully, my wife is a very stubborn Irish lady who wouldn't let me give up, so I managed to keep going.
And I know you mentioned, you have the support of your girls as well. And what does it mean, I guess, So the question I was asking was, what does it mean to you or your family?
Yeah, I mean, what I was really missing when I was ill, I think what was happening was I was becoming, everything was becoming a bit like Groundhog Day. So it was the same things over and over, and I was searching for something that would give me back, I guess, some pride in myself and a role back within the family, because I'd sort of lost that. And I knew that cooking could give me something that I could be involved in the family again. And so it gave me that sort of feeling of well-being, of self-worth. But also what it did was it got the family back together, because my daughters all of a sudden were like, yay, dad's up, dad's doing something, look what he's made, look what he's trying to do. And it sort of spiraled upwards as opposed to going downwards. So it was hugely powerful. And then it gave me something to look forward to. So every day was like, right, what am I going to do today? What am I going to make? How am I going to do it? And I think the physical and the mental and the physical just got so intertwined then, that they were both helping each other, whereas before it was going the other way, which is they were bashing against each other. So yeah, it's been hugely powerful.
Obviously, the impact of physical and mental health, and how some of the barriers from your fibromyalgia impacted your cooking. What are some of the what are some of the specific, I guess, challenges that you had in the kitchen?
Yeah, I think the one I found the most was that I used to be quite an active person, so I used to do a lot of running and playing sport and stuff, and all of a sudden I wasn't able to do much. So even lifting a pan of boiling water was becoming dangerous, or trying to follow a recipe. I'd be halfway down it and then realize I didn't have everything I needed, and that would be like, oh no, the world's going to end. What do I do? And so everything that feels quite small became huge, and everything was putting barriers in the way that probably previously I would have said no. But what kept me going was this sort of end goal of, I want to be sat at the kitchen table with my family eating something I've made. That's the vision I had in my head. And rather than there being a table with 4 chairs and one empty, mine, I wanted to be in that 4th chair. And that's what drives me on every single day now, that says, okay, there's a barrier, it's not gone very well, but hey, so what? I'm still sat in the chair. So yeah.
The story was connecting with NHS Center for Pain Services. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'd never heard of them. I'd been struggling with going to therapies, going to having operations, you name it, everything. It was all happening, but they were all happening in isolation. So I'd have something happen to my back, or I'd have something happen here, or I'd go somewhere else for something to try and help me with my mental health. But each one on their own wasn't doing anything. And then this place, this sort of mythical place, came out of nowhere, which is this NHS Centre for Pain Services. I didn't know what it was, and I was absolutely, to be honest, I was petrified going. And it's a sort of a national centre for, they just take 10 people once a month. That's it, from the whole country. And I managed to get on it. I got there, and it's 4 weeks. You're a resident for 4 weeks in this place, and it's the scariest thing I ever did, but the best thing that ever happened, because what they did, they took the time to sort of almost unpackage you and then try and help you package yourself back up, but in a completely different way. And they were incredibly sensitive, but incredibly passionate and strong about what they were trying to achieve. But at the end of the day, it had to come from me. But only once I understood the physical side of things, the mental side of things, sort of basically they broke everything down for me, and then allowed me to sort of start to pick it up. And it was there actually that the book started from, because one of the tasks I had to do sounds a bit, you look it back and think, was that it? But I actually had to go to a supermarket and buy something. Now that at the time petrified the heck out of me, but it got me back into going to a place, and I suddenly thought, I actually quite like this. And actually, I came back with 3 recipe cards from the supermarket. And I said to them on the second week, I'm going to write a book. And they said, yeah, right, okay. We hear lots of promises. So when I came back with the book, they were like, wow. But genuinely, it changed my life. It changed my life. It changed my family's life. 4 weeks. I'm not cured. I'm not any better physically, pain-wise than I was. I still suffer all the time. But I know how to cope better with it now. I've got mechanisms to help me deal with it, which includes cooking. So all of these things were helping me build layers and layers and layers of coping mechanisms, and that's what they did for me, really. And that's why I wanted to give back to them from the book. So any sort of proceeds I'm making for it, I'm giving it to them. So they need the funding, so it's great.
Going to the book, I mean, that's one of my questions is where did it come from? This cookfulness, a therapeutic approach to cooking. Wonderful book. So I guess some of it was inspired from experiences at this pain center.
Yeah, totally. Basically, my wife said to me, because I knew it when I was in Bath. They said to me, "What do you want?" And I was like, that's a big question. I don't actually know. I said, I want to be cured. And they said, no, you can't. And they said, so actually, what do you really want? And I said, I want to be part of my family again. And they said, okay, how are we going to get there? And that's where the cooking bit sort of came. I said, right, I used to love cooking, but not for the right reasons. I just sort of did it. Whereas now it was becoming something really, really special. And my wife said to me, cooking, mindfulness, all these things, they're all about being in the moment, about enjoying just what's happening. And that's where Cookfulness came from. I'd love to claim the credit. It was my wife who did it. But the whole point of the book was basically trying to show what barriers I'd found in terms of trying to cook again. So a recipe book just got lost on me. How could it work for me? And therefore, if it could work for me, maybe it could work for other people. And that's really where it all spawned from. And the recipes just came flying out. I think it was probably over a long period of time. These things have sort of built up in me, and they just all came out. And it just sort of seemed to fit into a nice pattern of these are the recipes, but actually, in order for me to be able to make them now, this is how I need it to be. As in, it needs to look in a certain way so I know I can follow it. There's no surprises. What am I going to use to help me get through it? So, okay, I can't chop today. What am I going to do? So it's sort of, I guess it's trying to make recipes adaptable to how you're feeling in the day. So one day you might be able to do things, prep time, cook time, brilliant. The next day you couldn't do it to that time. You'd need to take longer. So I've sort of expanded the third time, to give yourself time to say, right, when you're not having the best of days, give yourself an extra 20 minutes. Then you're not panicking. You're not worried about, oh my God, I should have finished this by now. And using the freezer, I mean, I love what some of the things you say about the freezer. It's so important, being able to use stuff that you've got. And also batch cooking. I know you're big on that as well, putting things away, so that when you're having a bad day, you can bring things out. And that's not cheating. It's not, and it's actually smart. It's you still made it. And the biggest thing for me was celebrating every single thing. So boiling an egg, hallelujah, look what I've done. And I would be proud. I'd pick this egg up and go to my daughters, look, I've boiled an egg. And it's like, okay. But it's so important because it makes me feel good, and they think it's brilliant because they think, yay, look what he's done. And it just makes you, just this creation of new memories is so important. There's so many years of looking back of things that went horribly wrong, missing out on my children's school shows, missing out on Christmases, missing out on all kinds of things, and they can drag you down quite substantially. So creating something new where I can pin these new amazing memories to is so important. And having the book, having things to, talking to yourself. I said to my daughter tonight, you're not going to believe what's happening now. I'm talking to someone in Canada, and they went, yeah, right. I said, no, I really am. And they were like, this is brilliant. It's uplifting. And that's something I didn't have for about 8 years. So yeah, it's huge.
Celebrating the small victories, right? I mean, that's
Oh, yeah,
part of it for
yeah. And
sure.
I say it a lot that, every time something small happens, celebrate it like you've won the World Cup.
Yeah.
Because look, I'm not going to see England win the World Cup. I don't think it's ever going to happen. Maybe the Rugby World Cup, that would be better. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's like celebrating it like almost like you've won it. Because to me, it is like you've won because you've done something that I couldn't have done last year, even a year and a half ago. It wouldn't have happened. So it's allowing myself to celebrate, allowing my family to celebrate with me, but also laugh with me. So when things go wrong, it doesn't matter. It's quite funny. I did a cooking thing when I was recording something the other day. Got it all done. I thought, oh, this is brilliant. As I played it to my daughter, she goes, "Dad, do you realize you were holding up a cauliflower and you were calling it a broccoli?" I went, "Oh." So that's it. It's funny, it's like, oh no, I've got to record the whole thing again, but it doesn't matter. It's because of that it's giving me, I'm here, I'm up. So yeah, it's celebrating, it's laughing, it's all those things you thought you couldn't do that you really can.
Well, that's a big part of the cooking process. What have you found to be the most important tool to have in the kitchen, even if how it's maybe helped you to overcome some of the barriers?
Yeah, I think that there's a few things that have really helped me massively, and I think one is to simplify lots of things, so including what I use. So I have sort of one knife that I use. It's a really good knife. It's a safe knife, but it's a good knife. And I have one sort of multi-purpose sort of pan. It's sort of like a flat wok, and I use those a lot. And that means I know that I can do these things in those, and I know they're there for me. I used to be a let's buy every single gadget in the world. I think I've got 3 spiralizers. You think, really? But actually, what do you really need? So, sort of, that was the first thing. Second thing for me is that I didn't realize how much I needed timers. I used to be a sort of, I think that's been in about half an hour, that'd be fine. Now I can't do that. It's sort of, I have to know, actually, that's been in for 20 minutes, or that needs to come out now. So I have about 4 or 5 timers on the go. And so I've got one on my phone, I've got one that looks like a chicken, I've got one on the oven. And what I do is I tend to put I put it next to the thing that I'm timing, so I don't wonder what's that going off for. And it's just all setting it out. It says, right, that's off, that's 30 minutes. Because at the moment, with the way the sort of brain fog works, I will forget. And yesterday I was making something and I came in to talk to my wife, and my daughter ran in and said, "The chicken's going." And I was like, "What?" And she goes, "Oh gosh." So I had to run back and think, yeah, I'd actually forgotten to put the timer on. So having timers is huge for me to sort of how I use them. And I think the sort of the last one for me in terms of sort of techniques, or whatever you might call it, is to understand when I can't do something, is to say, right, actually, I want to make this dish, but I physically haven't got the ability to do it right now. However, I know that in my freezer, I've got this already half started. So I'll use that and not to worry about that. Actually, that's really good. That's a really good way of saying, actually, I've still made it. I still made the thing that's in the freezer, and I'm still making this. So I should be really proud of myself. So a lot of it was sort of unwinding. It almost sounds a little bit over planned, but actually it's the way that I sort of plan for the unplanned. I've sort of said it before, is plan. How do you plan for the planned and plan for the unplanned? And that's the unplanned bit was the hard part, to how can you sort of help yourself get there. And so all of sort of dropping these barriers of fear or of things going wrong is really what I'm sort of trying to do here. And I'm learning so many more things from people. So they'll offer things. Have you tried this? It's like, wow, that's amazing. I've never thought of that. And it's an incredible community to get in, people talking about food and talking about health, about what they do, how do they find things work, because there's no right answer, there's just lots of answers, and they could work for you and they might not. And I'm just loving hearing from people saying, I tried this, didn't work for me. Well, great, but you tried. and that's just is an amazing thing to hear, that you're not on your own. You're not stupid. It's just the way that the wiring is at the moment, and being able to understand that and accept it is quite a big thing. But once you do, it's amazing how it feels.
To what's worked for other people as well, and it might not work for you, like you said, but trying these things out, and I think my gratitude to a lot of the work that you've been doing for a long time. I picked up so much new knowledge from listening to you and from reading your book.
Oh, thank you.
We're really excited to showcase, more on Cookfulness and Mr. Cookfulness himself. I know you talked about, cooking. You used to cook.
Yeah.
But what are some of your first memories of?
Well, there's two that jump out at me. One was my mum's Sunday roasts. So my mum was a brilliant cook, and I didn't realize how good she was really until I started to work out how the heck did she do all of this. She was a teacher, and she'd come home, she'd be marking, and then she'd be making this amazing food. Her roasts were just extraordinary, and they just forever live with me in terms of the smell, the watching her in the kitchen, just seemingly nonchalantly doing all of this stuff. And I'm thinking, how does she do that? How is she doing it? And amazingly, actually, just very recently, we found some of my mum's old recipe books, but they're books that she'd put together. So she'd ripped something out of a magazine or ripped this out of a magazine. And I've got these sort of folders of hers. My mum passed away about 11 years ago, but I found got these folders with her writing in them, things that she marked up, going back to the 70s, some of these amazing dishes. And I think to me, it's priceless, because it reminds me of her, but it also excites all the food that I'd gone through, I'd lived with her. It's all there in these amazing books. And I think the second one is on a Saturday, maybe I think it was once a month, my dad would take me to the local Chinese takeaway. I say Chinese. I lived in a little island, so this was just like, what's this stuff we've got? But that whole going to the place, the whole fun of what's he going to be like today, the smells, you could hear them in the kitchen clanking and shouting, and I was like, oh, this is just brilliant. I think those two things I look back on now as they obviously stuck in my head, because I want my daughters to feel those things. And I'm very lucky, both my daughters are actually very interested in cooking and baking, and they love it, and they're frighteningly good at it. Which is a bit embarrassing when they say, Dad, yeah, we know this. It's like, oh, okay. But it's lovely, and I just think that whole family essence of food is so important, and often you take it for granted. And I know I did, and I look back now and I read these sort of files of my mum's writing, and it's just amazing. It's such an important part of your life. Sat eating food with your family or wherever it is. It happens pretty much every day when you're growing up, but you don't necessarily feel that at the time. It's only really when you look back you realize how great it was. So yeah, I was very, very lucky to have a mum who was a good cook.
That it seems like time capsule, your family memory, super special. Has any of what you found its way into your book or help inspire?
From my mum's side of things, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think there's a number of dishes in there which are a nod to my mum, and my dad. My dad, bless him, was never he wasn't really allowed in the kitchen. He was quite dangerous. He only started to learn to cook once my mum couldn't do it, and he actually turned into quite a good cook. But he had to follow a strict recipe, and I think that helped me as well, because I looked back and thought, well, if he can do it, learning on a recipe, then maybe I can write it in such a way that works. And some of the food that's in there, so there's a bread and butter pudding which I just love, and my mum made the most amazing bread and butter pudding, and I sort of, in the book, I guessed at how she did it. Now I found the recipe she had, and I wasn't far off, but I missed a couple of things. And I think that's what the beauty of it is. I love trying to work out what it was. So I know this wasn't the question, but I'll go to if I go to the supermarket and I'll buy like a packet of maybe some falafel mix, and you make it up and you eat them, and you think, oh, actually, that's really nice. But then I'll look at the ingredients and think, well, I wonder if I could make this. Could I have a crack at it? And that's how I'm working now. It sort of helps the creative juices without me going, I'm going to make falafels, because it would probably go, no, you're not. But actually, if I've got like a trigger, it helps me to work out, well, actually, I tasted nice, so let me have a crack at it. And I think that's the difference now in my sort of view of it's okay. It's absolutely fine to try these things out, because if you like them, then try and make them. And if you don't like them, well, that's fine. So yeah, there's a lot of, I mean, there's such a lot of history in the book of not just sort of my mum and dad, but also my girls and my wife, because for large parts of the girls' lives, they knew me as ill. So now to see the book is sort of almost a celebration of that journey, and I want to do more of them, because I think there's so much more that can come from it. So, but yeah, it's full of family. That's really what it is.
I know that you included in here caught my attention. I love those. I have to try some of those out. So I'm looking for that. With the holidays approaching, what are some of, I guess, your favorite sort of festive cooking traditions or like specific dishes?
I have probably three, and they follow on from each other. So on sort of Christmas Eve, it's making stuffing, and it's I do it with my daughters, and we just sort of have fun making it up. One will be getting some breadcrumbs going or whatever, and it's just great fun getting it all ready, and then we keep it, and it's ready for the next day, because it's helping out so that there's not too much stress the next day, but also they all feel like they've been involved. So that's great. Christmas Day, one of my favorite things to make, I mean, I love doing Christmas dinner, but actually is the sort of brunch, when you're all sat in your Christmas PJs and it's actually to make something just nice and simple for a Christmas brunch. So we tend to try and have a mixture. We'll have some bacon or some sausages or whatever, and some or whatever. But we just love having those while you just sat around eating, watching the presents opening. And it's simple. It's very simple, but everybody loves it. Probably my favorite is Boxing Day, because the leftovers. I love it when you've got all that stuff left. You've got like a pile of sprouts that no one's eaten, which is sacrilege. I love it stuff. And the bits of meat and bits of this, bits of that, and actually creating something from that. And my latest one that I do is a paella. So it's just a pile it all in a pan with some paella rice and some stock, but it's just a bit different, and it's lovely, and you can use up all the leftovers, and it feels like a completely different meal. It doesn't feel like you have it leftovers. Of course, you can have the curry if you want a curry, that's fine, but I just love that whole concept of using stuff. So I think those 3 days, the stuffing, the brunch, and then the using the leftovers, we do it every year.
Transforming leftovers into completely new dishes is, it's some work, but it can to cut down on extra time there for sure. Those I think the Boxing Day paella, give that a shot. That sounds delicious. One of my last questions here. I'm a big fan of your Cookfulness playlist posts. Music is a big part of my cooking process. Really, really important. What are your top 3 cooking tracks?
Wow. Right. Well, yeah. I mean, music is massive. It's huge for me too, because it feels so many emotions. And I used to be a drummer in my heyday, so it's music's just there, and to have music and food is brilliant. So I think I've got a couple of older ones and a new one, because I like adding new things as we go. So the first one would be Hootie and the Blowfish, who are one of my favorite bands, and the first band myself and my wife ever went to see together. So that's got a great memory. And also, I sang one of their songs at our wedding. Well, I tried to. So their song "Hold My Hand" is up there, number one. Number two would be Prince, who is I went to see him, thankfully and luckily, we went to see a number of times. An incredible musician. But "Beautiful Night" live is if you want to get going, it's that. You just play it and you cannot stop going. You're off. Thirdly, and it's sort of new, I don't know if you've heard of Yola. So she's just breaking into America. She's from England, but she's just breaking into America. She is a sort of bluesy, country, gospel-y type singer, but she's extraordinary. She's only quite young, but she's just brilliant. And she did a version of Elton John's "Goodbye Yellow Brick Road," which just completely changed how I thought about that song. And I play that now, and you can't help but sing to it. So those three at the moment are at the top of the list. But as I say, I've got music going constantly, and it helps pin again new memories to music. So I could be listening to the radio and I'll hear a song. I thought, that's going on the list because I love that. Or I'll be out somewhere with my family and it'd be having a great day. And you hear a piece of music, you say, right, that music has to go on the list because it will remind me of the great day. So yeah, it's huge. But those would be my three.
Love those. Thank you. I'll have to check out. Was it Yola?
Yola, yeah, Yola. Yeah.
Okay. I will have to check her out. Sounds amazing. Yeah, I mean, I'm always interested to our cooking playlist as well. So thank you for sharing those. And just a huge thank you. I hope that people can find some of these tips and strategies helpful, better managing, some of the challenges that they might face when cooking. So thank you again. Find your book. Also, how can they keep up with Mr. all your posts and playlist recommendations?
Thank you. Well, I'm on. The book is on Amazon, and it's on a number of other sort of online platforms. I'm not quite sure exactly what it's in Canada, but I know it's definitely on Amazon there. I'm on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, all at Cookfulness. So Cookful with one L-ness, and I post pretty much every day, and it tends to be things about either something I've made, something that's gone wrong, something that's gone well, bit of music, or actually this is something I found, a new ingredient, this is brilliant. Do you fancy having just showcasing different ways of doing things, different utensils I've found, and it's just a bit of it's my life now in cooking, and I'm hoping people will look at it and go, oh, maybe I'll have a try at that. Or yeah, that happened to me yesterday. And that's really what it is. It's just me sharing what's going on in the cooking world in my little brain.
Love it. Thank you again, Ian. Go check out Cookfulness. Check out his book. It is on Amazon through the access in Canada, but I'm sure it's accessible in other places as well. Check out his book. Ian, forward to cooking with you soon. Watching this now, stay tuned for our upcoming cooking demonstration with recipes from Ian's cookbook, and soon. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers.
Hello and welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that wonderful interview with Ian. Again, I apologize for my audio technical difficulties, but Ian had just incredible things to say and just a truly inspiring story. And again, a wonderful cookbook. This is Cookfulness by Ian Taverner. We'll post the link, the Amazon link, so if you were interested, you can check it out. Again, there's just some wonderful recipes in there, very accessible, approachable, and some really nice tips and techniques to help with the cooking process, and to overcome some of the challenges, the physical and mental challenges from chronic illness. In specific, from Ian's experiences with chronic pain, anxiety, mental health, fatigue, and again, just a wonderful cookbook. So check it out. Remember that we will be live again January 20th, I believe, Thursday, January 20th at 11 a.m. We have another amazing community partner joining us. So stay tuned to our YouTube channel. You can subscribe. If you click the notification bell, it'll give you updates when we do post who that new guest is. That way you can stay tuned. But other than that, we'll see you soon.